What we want to do now is to work with this image, if that's something that came through in this alignment. Perhaps there's a thought stream. Perhaps there's still just an energy flowing that is moving through you. And work to translate what has come to mind or what is coming to mind in terms of some ideas, some thoughts about what you see the future of the One Fundamental School and esoteric education being like during these next 14 years. So I recognize that we move from one state of mind, you might say, or energy stream to another to do this. It's important, though, because what we want to do in just a minute is to ask those who have some sense of what the future could look like or should look like to tell us very briefly what that is. And out of a series of ideas or thoughts that come about, we will gather into some dialogue groups, word here, to talk a bit more about, to give it a bit more form. So the process will go like this. In a moment, I'm going to ask anyone who cares to offer something, their idea, their thought, and would be willing to serve as at least a potential dialogue starter with a few other people about that particular idea. I'm going to give you mine as an example of this, just to kind of trigger the response, and we'll see. It is possible we could have one large group discussion, but in meetings like this, it is not uncommon that there are different, there are varied thoughts that come about, and a chance to develop them with a small group of people often leads to delectable fruit. So, for example, the image that came to my mind was the very simple, I'm not sure if I got the 7-3 image that clear or not, but it's the receiving something from above and I'm passing it down through me. I mean, this is, what do I got? You know, it's just me. And what was occurring to me as I think about this is, was that we have this marvelous teaching. It's like the curriculum in one sense has been given to us, at least at some level of definition. So for me, what I'd like to talk with people about is how we talk about this curriculum in a way that aids those who are actively involved in service in the world and who may not know much about it. We talk about this as seeking to extend a hand to the new group of world servers. So this isn't so much for me about teaching the teaching, although I love that. I love that. This is more about how do we influence, how do we use the wisdom that perhaps is coming through us to strengthen the hand of those who are involved in solving some of the world's problems. That's the discussion, little discussion group I wouldn't mind having with a few people. Okay? So let me just ask, I'll walk around slowly, we'll grab a microphone here. Does somebody have a thought, a notion, it's in the middle, I'll look at you all, that you wouldn't mind serving as a focal point for? I'll tell you how we're going to figure this out in a minute.
I was thinking, most of the meditations I've had so far are about Mars and Mercury and their resolution. This has been a topic for over 1,000 years, I guess, since before the Renaissance. And is the sword mightier than the pen? And vice versa, is the mind stronger than the self-will? Basically, are we going to choose vision or war? And I look at that astrologically as the dichotomy between Mars and Mercury to a great extent. and those I guess rule Scorpio, and they rule Aries. So.
Thank you. Other ideas that have come to you that you would be willing to, now we may get, we're going to kind of have people choose which ones they want to go to in a minute, but
the image is the circumscribed eye, and it's Uranian in that it's bringing spirit into form. And the phrase is infusing revelation in the substantive world.
infusing revelation into the substantive world. Other, the substantive world, yes.
My image is a pumpkin. And when you cut it open, it's this very orange, golden, yummy thing. And the number is 3. And so it has, for me, many different connotations. One is about feeding the hungry, simple, nourishing food. And another is embodiment, bringing the teachings into all the bodies so that it becomes an integrated life experience. Another one has to do with both distribution and also the attraction of support for centers which are distributing the teachings.
So if you were to initiate a conversation with a few people who wanted to have this, is there a central point to it, or does it cover all 3 aspects?
Central point. Yes, I would say all third ray monads should congregate around this conversation.
Calling all third ray monads, yes, I think that's very apt. Okay, other ideas and thoughts? Yeah.
This is very embryonic, so I'll just share what came to mind. That the ageless wisdom is a great being. And when I was thinking about the endpoint vision, I was seeing something very much alive. That people were not studying books. That people were not studying an interpretation of great teachings, but that they were studying this great life that is the ageless wisdom. So the end point was that this was very much alive, this teaching that people would receive it and become it. So the presentation is, I haven't got it worked out obviously, but this great life that is the ageless wisdom.
What comes to my mind is people, this may be too trivial, but living the ageless wisdom. You look at somebody and you say, they are living this. So they live it on all levels. Is that close to it? Part of it. Take it one more step. Okay. Yes.
So the image that came to me was the very simple, I guess, first ray image of just the circle with the dot in the center. So as I pondered that, well, what do I do with that? So then the next reflection that came through was, given that we're coming into an Aquarian age, the image of Uranus and just quite frankly, that which juices me or inspires me, which is rituals and ceremony for the New Age. So ideas of creating and doing ceremonies and rituals that bring this living energy through. and performing them wherever a response is found.
Yes.
These groups might blend, but it's something akin to what Lawson was talking about and Francis was talking about, where it's the embodiment, a real fourth ray embodiment of the teachings, where it's bringing the teaching through all the bodies. So I'm interested more and more. We started with the 7-ray seminars with a real physicalization of these ray energies. So how else can we use the creative arts, to share via the heart and body the essence of these teachings? So in some ways it could blend in with the ceremony, and it absolutely blends in revelation into form, and it absolutely has to do with the pouring through all the bodies.
Anyone else want to?
The great media that the whole world is tapping into is internet. And I really have been thinking about this myself along with everybody else. That it's really important to have information out there in a variety of fields that can link off to the individual groups. But I think that if we don't really start thinking of how to use that, we are missing the mark, really, in trying to touch as many lives and people as we can. And I think it's really important to think of different ways to do that. We already have Moria Fed up and going, of course, and that's one great start we've made, but there must be other creative ways we can work.
Using the internet as one creative way, or using the internet as a base for other creative ways? Good. Michael, did anything occur to you that you might...
With Leone on this, all of my imagery has been about using the net to leverage our teaching. There's just no place where we can't reach. So what's our most effective means of getting it out there? This is just a little example, in a little way of what we're trying to do right here. So, it's said in the Bible that the secrets of the kingdom of heaven will be shouted from the rooftops. That's a perfect example for the internet. The next 14 years, the concluding years of the year of the forerunner, we have to broadcast. But in a way that really reaches.
Is there even no stumble upon? It's on the net, and you can just hit stumble upon, and if you enter the topics that you're interested in, and it'll browse through the net, and it'll just show up different things. So anyway, stumbled upon. Now in New York, there is a a microphone with a phone number on it that you can dial, and your voice is broadcast. Whatever message you have is broadcast into the street. And it says, please be nice. But nonetheless, I mean, in a way, this is like a beautiful image of everyone calls in, and it's a continuous stream, and this feeling of getting it out into the world. Anyway, there's a little.
Good example. All right. Anybody else? Okay, now here's the next step. What we're going to do is...
I have a couple of things.
Oh, you've got a couple of things. Okay, good.
Yes. Well, I just want to say that the seed group work, as the essence of methods of service, I think really deserves a lot of attention. It's a 275-year project from Master DK, and I think that the ways of developing the seed group work can really call for our attention. We're doing this somewhat in the Moria Federation, and Meditation Mount has done it, and other places have done it. But I don't think the impulse should be let go. I think it should be sustained.
I think it is. I think it's very close. Well, here's what we want to do now. We are going to try to read these again and see. There may be some that combine. We've already had a couple of people saying, looks like these three ideas may come together. So we're going to do a little bit of group combinatory work here, and then ask you to think about what would you like to spend some time focusing on. And as we narrow it down to a certain size here, have you come up and just put a little mark by the one that's got you going. And then we're going to vote with our feet as to which groups to go into. So why don't we go over this one more time, Michael? So,
well, the first one was yours, Sheldon.
Okay, yes.
How to bring the curriculum to those who serve but may not know about the curriculum. In other words, strengthening the hands of the new group of world servers with the power of what is in our teaching and curriculum.
I think we could, just to pick up on what was just said, I think we could add that C group one to that one, because for me, that's there's a couple of known paths into that area, and the C groups are one of them. The rays are another, but without getting too far into it. Okay, second one was...
this is the issue of selfishness and unselfishness. Mind versus self-will, vision versus war, Mars versus Mercury in Aries. So it's the big split between the soul and personality, I think.
The symbol I saw was basically a diamond-shaped, vertical diamond-shaped yellow, and it tied in with other things from days before that unite Mars and Mercury.
The things that unite Mars and Mercury.
Nice. Okay, thank you. All right. Number 3
is infusing revelation into the substantive world. So it's...
say a bit more about it. Do you see this connecting with other topics?
Well, it does. It tends to be more specifically fourth ray, and the clue to that is that it's the I that's circumscribed, which suggests that it has to do with the visual revelation, or that all those things connected with the I. And I sense that that's a fourth ray form of revelation.
It seems to me
Yes,
that if we're thinking of getting this out on the net, that more than words are required. In other words, if the imagery is tremendously evocative, then we're going to do better in getting our message across. So I could see lots of applications for this.
Yeah, this may tie to the I don't know, Heidi, did you use the word fourth ray methods? But I mean, it may tie up to that very well. Okay. The next one was
the abundant pumpkin.
Third ray monad call. Was that?
Feeding the hungry, embodiment, distribution and support of those who distribute. It's something somehow like meeting the need. How could we essentialize this loss?
Does this connect with other things here, or is this...
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's let it stand alone for a moment, okay? Yeah, good.
I just think it's part of the new civilization that's emerging.
Well, we're breaking bread together, and we're trying to share the nourishment.
Yeah.
And right now we have a situation in the world where nourishment is not shared, and many areas of the body of humanity are atrophying, and others are in the glut. So it's a distributive thing.
Yeah.
Wait a second, did I miss a point? This was 4. There's another number here, I'm sorry. So this is number 5. It's relating to the ageless wisdom being as if it were a great life or being, which is really living in people and people living in it, and somehow becoming that wisdom, living that wisdom, taking one's part within that great being, which is the wisdom. I mean, he does say that beauty is the name of a great being, and goodness and truth, all great beings. So it's quite an abstract idea, but it really boils down to living the teaching.
Mm-hmm. I see the internet, for example, as a delivery system, but we've had lots of wonderful ideas in terms of what that process might be like, what the content might be like, and what the initial initial idea, that the initial seed. So I think there are many parts.
Yeah. You seem to have a good handle on what you want to bring across. So I think if you focalize this, it'll be interesting. Okay. We're trying to zero in on, how, what the groups can be, right? Okay, now this was Helena's. It was about the first ray symbol of the, sort of like the sun, the circle of God, Uranus. Ceremonies to bring livingness to life, to make things live.
That has a kind of standalone quality, right? Yeah.
Especially the ceremonial aspect. See, that's what's being mentioned
Yeah,
the
exactly.
first time so far under this. And then Heidi, I think, came in with fourth ray methods of embodying the teaching, the creative arts to share the essence of the ageless wisdom in body and heart. Something like that.
We said that might well blend, with.
See,
Francis
we're in a
was-
fourth ray conference here, and it's interesting that we're talking about reaching people, but the fourth ray seems to be pretty prominent in the way, fourth ray, seventh ray, how we want to reach people. We wouldn't want to do without those virtues, because it makes things interesting. When you see a good story, words get a little dull. And when you see the people singing opera in the train station, you kind of pay attention. When they all broke into the Hallelujah chorus in the middle of whatever train station it was in England, it got my attention.
Heathrow Terminal 5.
The next one was the net, just the big net. This is what DK called the radio. But this is it. The teaching goes forth over the radio. And then the C groups, which was tied in with number 1, perhaps, all the servers working in different C groups.
Okay, now here's the next step. So you've heard these. Some of them will combine. We can combine them in the following way. What we need you to do now is just to stand up and move toward the flip chart and think which topic or combined topics you would like to be part of, and just put your mark there. Doesn't have to be your initials, just your mark. We've got 2 markers here, and we'll see how these things sort out.
Maybe, can I do this? Yeah, because I'm just thinking, we want to be able to look at here, perhaps something like that, or Sheldon will be the wall, the poster. Oh, sure. Hi. You are again. Yeah. Well, glad to see you. Yeah. Denmark. Nice to have you. Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so we did this. You'll stay with me. Just leave it. Does everybody put their mark down? Okay. Mhm. No, and that's it.
Those are the 2 definite ones. And then there's just 1 on each of them. So what if we broke into, let's see. All right, a fourth ray approach, a seed group approach, and I think the net is an important one, don't you? I mean, I think
the net is very important.
would if those were the three, would people have a place to go? If those were the three that we chose from, would everybody be happy? Maybe we could what? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
but of course, yeah. And there's just the net itself.
I mean, because obviously these are all vital and interesting topics, but perhaps we could, because we're a relatively small group, it seems like the net is a nice, big, round, all-inclusive thing, and certainly the seed groups are, and the fourth ray is a little more particular, but shall we do that?
We've decided that we have these three groups, and here's how we want to work it. If we were to
Ceremony.
Should
That
ceremony
could be part of the
That part of the
ceremony be part of the
seventh,
fourth
thing,
ray?
you
Is
know.
4 and
or
7?
seventh ray.
That feels important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. Yeah, it could be separate of it. Plans. Okay.
Because
Ceremony.
the Masonic ceremonies are under the fourth ray. In other words, he talks about the method of presenting the archetypal language through ritual. It's fourth and seventh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what we'll do. Right down the middle here, we're going to have one group gather a circle of chairs around this side of the room, one group a circle of chairs around here, and for the sake of space, we can, there is a little place outdoors here. Not outdoors means just outside the outdoors. Not too noisy. We could have a third group out here. So we just take some chairs and we meet. Now, the goal of this conversation, the process first. We want to do is ask for people's thoughts around this topic. And some one person, I think this group can be fairly self-guided as far as contributions and making sure everyone has a chance to speak. But we will need some one person to volunteer to bring back the fruit of the conversation. Okay, so we would like that person to identify himself early on, to be the bearer of wisdom back. The goal of this conversation then is really to see, are there some inspired ideas that have come to mind as a result of the conversation that will take esoteric education forward into the future. And again, with the idea in mind that it will serve humanity through the next 14 years, helping us to make the right decisions for us to not just survive, but to thrive as a species on this planet. So, yes, I'm about to do that right now. About to do it, thank you. Yes, okay, very good. Yes, why don't we have the group that's going to work, the people who would like to talk about seed groups and how we help these ideas of the ageless wisdom serve the new group of world servers, because I'm going to play in that one. I'd love to meet out where it's cooler. And somehow you all love this hot room, and I don't do well in this, so I'd like to meet with a group of people out here in the hallway. Okay, so that makes it easy. Why don't we have the fourth ray methods and that kind of stuff work on this side of the thing, and bring your chairs tight so you can hear what's going on, and the next group of people working on this side of the line. Now, there are three rules here for these meetings, and it works like this. Whoever comes are the right people. Even if there's only one or two people there, that's just fine. Don't worry about it. It is what it is, and the wisdom will come. Second is, we'll give the outside time limit for the conversation in a moment, but when it's over, it's over. I mean, there's no reason. We would not like this to degenerate. What's a better word than that? To dissipate into babble. This wants to be a focused conversation. When it's done, it's done, and you want to help each other. Help the person who will be the summarizer summarize. And finally, if you're in this meeting, this is called the law of 2 feet. If you're in the meeting and it just isn't working for you, you can very politely just kind of move to some other group, and there's no blame, no judgment. You are just going where you're being drawn. Fair enough? So let us Thank. A break. Good. Yes. Yeah, okay. So 10-minute break, and then we'll meet into the three groups and 45 minutes in those groups. Thank you. Thank you for helping me. I don't tend to.
Well, it's off because we needed to tell them something. Okay, so basically, webinar people, we are going to have a little break and then get into these three groups. And after about, what is it, 45 minutes, Sheldon? What is it? After 45 minutes, we will come back and report about the methods that we see for advancing the esoteric education during the next 14 years according to these three types of approaches. So we'll be off now for roughly an hour, 55 minutes, something like that, and then we'll be back. Okay? Right. Into the breach. Okay.
Okay, welcome back. We are reassembling after our three groups have met for about 45 minutes to discuss our initial sense, I would say, of esoteric education moving forward for the next period of time, at least the next 14 years. So what we'd like to do is to get some brief reports from each of the three groups. We'll see if there are a little bit of questions or comments, and then we'll begin to wrap it up. So we will start. We were a group that was working with the question of how can we support the new group of world servers with our understanding of the ageless wisdom, and combining that with the notion of thinking along seed group lines and also thinking along ray lines. I'd attempt a summary like this and let Gail fill in some things, and that may ring a bell. See if I can read my own writing here. But I think what we came to was something like this, that we have, as we think about the ageless wisdom from this perspective, a series of principles, practices, which can aid directly the work of these groups who are serving actively in the world. What we need to do is to recognize what those principles and practices are, perhaps distill them to some degree out of the teaching, and serve as either consultants in an unobtrusive way, as positive infiltrators to various groups, as Peter was suggesting, using the internet as a way to put forth ideas and suggestions for positive functioning for some of these groups. One of the examples was if we have a sense that a group, an NGO perhaps, is a lot of third-rate types, very active, that somehow conveying the suggestion that stillness could be of help to them. So that was one of the, I would say that's one of the things that we talked mostly about, with several different examples of this. Yeah, you want to?
We need to.
I need to stand up. Sorry.
we came up with the idea of having an early warning system that could be used on the internet of some organization or group who is doing something that resonates with the deep wisdom that we know, and then to highlight that on the internet. We also came up with the idea of Moria Federation bestowing awards, like an award for inclusivity or an award for group endeavor, and to have a nice award made up and somebody go and present them with the award and thank them for their work in group endeavor. We also thought about, we have to encourage groups to think along the 7 ray lines, to encourage that, to find subtle ways to teach that, and to incorporate that into the workings of those groups.
A couple of more examples. Jocelyn was saying, I wonder what the 2/7 ashram is thinking about on the inner side, and is there a way that we could tune into them? And we recognize that, of course, DK tells us that each of these C groups has an inner group which is active. So if we learn to ask very simple questions, we might not use 2/7, but we would obviously be able to pose an inquiry that could guide conversation for some period of time, so that people can tune in to a level of wisdom which is already present. And this would require of us the use of our own ray knowledge in appropriate ways. Peter was suggesting, what about a system where we could learn about a number of conferences which are going on, like a new kind of cycle of conferences which are either working toward the same end, or embodying certain principles which are common principles, so that we all know about this and we can have them support one another more actively, but also for us to be knowing about them in advance and able to contribute our own thought process to their work. Herb mentioned on a local level, what about libraries? Are we doing anything to get some of our materials in the local libraries? And exactly. The other one I wanted to mention was, well, I think more could be said, but just to say one more time, we have, in addition to teaching the teaching, okay, in its pure form, what we can do is distill from the teaching a series of, again, practices, principles, which will bring in the Aquarian Age. Identify those groups who are already moving in that particular direction, help them recognize that's what they're doing if they're not already knowledgeable about it, and perhaps find ways through the internet, through being present, through other suggestions, to help them with our knowledge, wisdom, to be even more effective in terms of what they do. So these are some beginning thoughts, I think, in terms of how this might move forth. Any brief questions? Yeah, I am.
Are we looking at something like an esoteric clearing house? Other than the fact that it's a very huge responsibility, I have no doubt that we have enough resources to do it in terms of human resources and knowledge. But to be a clearing house, I think we would probably need a whole lot of, in addition to whatever intuitions we have, our personalities also will have to actually be on board. It's going to be a lot of energy. It requires a lot of energy.
Sounds like a great project for students in the school who are moving along in their curriculum. Maybe it's one of those service projects, but that's Esoteric Clearinghouse. And there's versions of this going right now. I know Rick has tried to do that in terms of full moon meditations, etc., going on different parts of the world, at least to the United States. But making that kind of thing available, that crystallizes one of the ideas, exactly. because what we were saying was that this may be a time for more interplay and, if not synthesis, at least intergroup cooperation among the various groups who are working to bring in the Aquarian Age, not just working along their own lines independent. Okay, so over here.
Actually, Lawson told a beautiful story to our group about his wife in the hours after the Christchurch earthquake, asked how she could help, and she gathered the children in her front yard. She gathered all the yarn from her house because she's a knitter, and she had them start to weave an incredible knit tapestry in the front yard of this beautiful, colorful yarn. The children were not anxious because they were focused on something beautiful. They were focused on something in community. And the parents were freaking out, as Lawson said, but the children were creating something. So, you know, what occurred to us in our group is that, of course, we are in the middle of a long-term earthquake in the world, and that the fourth and seventh ray could go a long way towards creating a rhythmic, beautiful offering that focalizes and stills and inspires and awakens. And so we were trying to ask ourselves how we can weave this color and beauty more rhythmically in community. And of course, we started off with already the many wonderful full moon meditations that are going on, but began to dream about how those might be amplified, how we might be able to include musicians and artists and experiences that can touch and awaken people that know nothing about it. So they've had some experience where they've been pierced by beauty and then want more, and then you start to offer them the words, but they've had the wordless experience. We also discussed the idea of pinpointing major people in our world that we know embody certain zodiacal energies or rheological energies, like that artist or that athlete, and we bring them we invite them into some kind of gathering or happening, so they become, their audience gets to go along with them, and they become an embodiment of the energy we are trying to celebrate and communicate, you know? So how do we infiltrate these communities that don't speak the language, and how do we invite them into our communities? What else? We jokingly were talking about, but there's some beauty to it, the idea of having ageless wisdom readiness kits, like earthquake readiness kits, do you know? And it's not the kit, and it's not the items in the kit per se, but how can we simplify this so that any moment the ritual can occur immediately, that can transform the space, that can offer the beauty, that can change the quality of energy in the room, do you know? What would our ritual be right now to elevate us? And I liked this idea, Lawson mentioned that this idea of that astrology is a series of questions, and you know, how can we promote an outgoing of appropriate questions at rhythmic times of the year, and then evoke artistic response. So if we ask the Cancerian question, if we ask the Aries question, if we ask the Taurus question, and then we ask for that via YouTube, what is your artistic Taurian response to that? You know, what might come our way? So really, frankly, it's just about creating some seventh ray structures where the fourth ray can go a little wild and offer it up. You know? So I know I missed a lot, but that's an essentialization. And now my voice is shot.
You remind me of something that I failed to mention along the ceremony lines. We were talking about awards, giving awards to various groups so that they recognize perhaps the principle, as we would say it, that they are working with. And some people were saying part of that award is just the ceremony that goes with it. And we began to talk a bit more about the fact that there are rituals and ceremonies that one can build into one's everyday life, business life, starting meetings, etc., which will have the effect, of invoking the angels, the angelic presence. And whether we talk about it or not, just encouraging those kinds of the positive use of ritual and then ceremony can be a way by which we help people do this kind of work, whether they think about it that way or not. So just
So our group was looking at the net, and we realized immediately that we were actually the doorway out to the world for whatever ideas that the other groups came up with. And that we've probably got a 5-second attraction span. People clicking on and off very quickly. If they're not interested, 5 seconds later they're gone. So the all of that's very alien for this person who only very, very rarely even Googles anything. So it's a different world. So we thought that we needed to explore the areas of YouTube. The point was made that there's nothing actually very credible at all about the 7 rays on YouTube. There is somebody who is espousing the values of the 9 rays, but there's nothing about the 7 rays, we know that. And it was also, a point was made that if we're going to be putting anything on YouTube, it has to be something about which we're passionate and therefore can be infectious. And of course we have that passion. So that's a basic that's important. We do have in our group many artists, filmmakers, creative people, all that ray 4, 7, all the rays that can be used to help bring more than just the word through YouTube and make it attractive. The cost, of course, can be nothing. And you really don't have to be a professional as long as you can make it colourful and interesting, weird and wacky. For example, you know, question of the week might be, do you want to be a spider?
Well,
Right?
there you go.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, yeah. So, you know, you choose what it is you want to put up and you get the creative persons in the group who can do something about that. And it's also letting esotericists know that you can have fun. Those awards that you were talking about, they could then, you could have clips of those put on YouTube so that that then goes out and is more widely celebrated. We then thought about blogging, of course, and Twitter, Google, Facebook, so for the same for all of those. Understanding, I think, that Twitter is a little bit more serious than YouTube. Is that right? The only person in the group who knew a great deal about this is Bayo, and so very important reference here. Apparently, Deepak Chopra is also on Twitter. And
Very frequently.
Pardon, Dalai Lama, all those people.
Several times a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, several times a day.
Oh,
yes. Okay. So what we thought about, how do we go about doing this? You need a dedicated, not one person, core group of people so that you have a constant stream of revival of whatever is going on, regeneration. But you then need to have them surrounded by another core group of people who are collecting and feeding and nourishing those people in the center, and then another group of people outside of that. So a sort of a 3-ring. You need a core of clever people who've got the skills who can really work Twitter and know all about it. Then you need people who can produce the videos and the information that you're going out, and that core group in the middle would incorporate people who knows what appeal to the market, and you can cater for a humorous approach and for the serious student. So you just cover the bases, but this core group would assess what's going out. They're the experts. They know what is out there, so they can feed the information back to the people who are creating the videos, and then all the other groups, they are the ones, all your groups, continually feed that second group and tell the second group what they want out there, to produce it. And as Bayo pointed out, it's that feeding back from the groups, the third level, that will keep the whole thing going. When you've got those two levels in place, then it's all the other groups, and everyone involved who to continually feed that. Otherwise, the source of information just dries up. And we thought also that you could possibly theme what was going out at any one time, or on a particular time frame. One of the things suggested was to look at the major conflicts in lifetimes, like Saturn return, the age 42. Take astrological areas and gear the sort of material that you put forward that would be helpful for people who were going through the conflicts of those times. And that could be like your earthquake readiness kits, so for those particular periods in their lives. And with links to the other sites that we already have, and such as Makara, etc., there was the thought that possibly some of those sites need to be made a little bit more inviting, so that you had music and other attractive animations, etc., whatever people think of, because they seem a little bit old-fashioned type of presentation for people. It needs to be interesting. And Bio has some expertise of thought, at least in this area, and has thought that possibly he could be someone who could help in that area in coordinating. And I'm sure we've got many people throughout the group worldwide who would be good at that.
And just for what it's worth, Sharon has launched this year Facebook and Twitter, so the university is online already. I mean, and she's been.
And
yeah.
that was the other thought that I omitted. We also made a point that there has to be more available, the sort of thing Rick's doing on the pit, that we have some place that all the classes that are going on, the full moon meditations that are going on, where people of an esoteric nature or those who are just slightly interested can find what's happening in their country, in their area, or in other countries that they may wish to plan to visit. And so that has to be more visible and coordinated. Thank you.
I'd just say that for those of us who did some thinking and planning for what this day would look like, our hope was to spend some time together recognizing what has happened over this 25, 27, 28-year period. And in recalling the highlights, even lowlights to some degree, but highlights of the work that's gone on, we capture the best of the past, and that can be a springboard for moving ahead in the future. And clearly when people talk a bit about their engagement with this, in my experience anyway, it either rekindles old relationships or builds new ones, because we're talking about those things which are of sole importance to us all. And on that level, we are indeed one people. This afternoon, the hope was to at least open the doors to thinking about the future with some lines of thought. And those of us who were took some notes probably have a little more work to do to put some more things together, because there's some wonderful, I think, ideas that will help us all move forward, and also inform the board as we meet after the conference in terms of what would look like to be the right things to do moving ahead. I would say good work, and turn this over to Michael now.
Thank you, Sheldon, for emceeing this, and thank you for all of the people who headed up the groups. I think, maybe we were hit by a little wave of fatigue this afternoon. I think we have the double Taurus energy. And it is that transitional moment between the pre-conference and the new conference. It always happens no matter what you do. Which brought me to a thought about great ideas versus expendable energy. or disposable energy. Like so many of us are up to our eyes in responsibilities at this moment. And a number of us are past the age of 50 even, or 60 even. And so how much energy we have at our disposal in an etheric, physical way may be somewhat limited, but we certainly have the mental, creative energy. And it struck me that we have to leverage what energy we have. It also, see, the thing is, this is in a way about the Seven Ray Institute University of the Seven Rays, and I would add to that all of its affiliates, and now this new work with the Moria Federation. The Moria Federation is now a quite consolidated international group involving the many affiliates. In other words, the structure is there. We have a good seventh ray structure, and it operates in a rhythmic manner, and the qualified, well-trained people operate rhythmically and continue to do so. When I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about Lawson also with the Christ College, operating with greater meditative regularity than probably any of the members of the group. I mean, they kind of hold a meditative fortress. And here's what I'm thinking. We have a context into which these kinds of ideas can be placed. This is like, shall we say, the outreach portion of the kind of thing we're already doing academically. So it strikes me that, with all of this first ray, seventh ray energy coming in through Uranus and Aries, we need to add the service activities area of the Moria Federation to build that up. And because I think we would expend the least energy if we go with the structure that we've already got and simply add to it. Now, I'm starting to do this a little bit with the net, trying to get these webinars out and commentaries on the books and all this, but I keep on thinking of how our site could be enhanced, how it could be made more beautiful, how we could reach more people in the C group area, how we could just simply use what we've got and expand upon it, rather than try to get something together, We've got it together. We've done it. After all these years of our rhythmic conferences, after 2.5 years now of the Moria Federation, it's just indicating some new outreach requirement that's being placed upon us to reach more people and to reach them in a better way. So I would like to, in my own mind, take in all that you've said here today, which is of a very creative and promising nature, and see what we could do to get more out of us and to also invite more people in as affiliates to help with this progress, rather than to have to rustle something up. I don't think we need that. I think we're ready to go in a careful way, adding layers of externalization to our present effort, without, of course, ignoring our very serious academic effort, which has to be sustained as an inspiring core. So I think, Heidi said, well, what about your own channel? Well, what about the Moria Federation channel, or whatever we want to call it? YouTube, or, I'm a little ignorant of these things, but why not? Why not? Because we've got a lot of wonderfully creative people that can make presentations out to the public. Why not? And the students would eat it up too. They would get a lot of benefit from it. So this has been very helpful for me. I kind of wonder, being mowed over by the Taurus energy, so I can hardly lift my head. But it always happens. Just wait till Saturday. I don't want to put an idea in your mind. Okay. By Saturday night, you will revive. Okay. So I'd like to see these things gotten together. I'd like to see them, made systematic. I'd like to have them, and then bring it up with the people who are working most intensively in Moria Federation, among which there are quite a few right here, and then try to make this happen. I do think, I'm all for in-person events. I really am. We're having an in-person event right now. The whole conference is an in-person event, and I'd love to see us regularly, go beyond 2012 with our continuation of in-person events. However, I'd like to also reach into every possible area in a coherent and attractive manner. And that's all these countries where people can't afford to do anything but the internet, and to vitalize and nourish and inspire through that. So I want to thank you very much for this effort and for at least giving me a lot of new ideas about what can be done. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we're at that point. First of all, are there any thoughts or questions additional or anything that someone would like to say? Do we have a roving mic? Yes. I've been always a roving mic.
Just in line with mentioning the webinars, a point that I did forget was that we had thought that you can have conferences completely by webinar. You don't have to have the presenters in any one place.
Yes, that's amazing. Of course, you can do that.
Costs
Yep.
not so much. Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do. We really start to think in this new non-local way.
Which
Yes.
makes it, available to so many people.
Absolutely.
And even more presenters, probably.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful. Of course, hugging the image on your screen leaves a little to be desired, but we will also get together in person. That's a beautiful idea, and Olivia's been talking a lot about that. There are some programs which are masterful in this respect. I mean, in other words, Uranus and Aries. It's the great electric, innovative planet. Aries is the new thing, a major first-rate push, a lot of seventh ray in it, manifestational. Yeah, we're ready for that. We're ready for that now. I know there are times when we may feel more energized than others, but I think that as a group, and you are the heart, what's it? We few, we happy few. What is it, Henry V? Something. Here you are. We have remained. We have endured. Okay. And so often in the question of service, it's not always, DK is so realistic about service. You've read the chapter in Esoteric Psychology too, right? Where he says so much of service involves sacrifice of time and interest. Well, that's a book closer right there for so many people, But it is true, we had that meditation the other day on the astrology thing where your will of the whole is interfacing your soul-infused personality. Well, your soul-infused personality is doing what it loves to do, like every rich young person loves to do. And then comes the will of the whole, demanding sacrifice of time and interest. And he knows, I'm sure he's interested in a lot of things that he's not having the time to do at this time. So, sometimes we have to do what must be done rather than what we choose to do because we like it. For the next 14 years, when DK was talking in World War II, he said for the next few years, all leisure, all normal activity, things of that nature are suspended. That's not the word he used, but that was the idea, right? You can't do those things because the situation is so crucial. So I have a feeling that we are again in that time of suspension, which doesn't mean we can't enjoy what we do, but it does mean that we have to figure out what really needs to be done. What does the ashram need to be done? And certainly reaching people with the second installment of the Ageless Wisdom, devoid of the glamour, devoid of all the hype and all the rest of it, that's what we need to do. At least give them a chance, reach them. How were we reached? Well, someone had to decide to print those blue books, didn't they? And so often when we walked in the bookstore, we said, I'll take them all. That's the usual response. If you possibly can, I'll buy them all. Glenda Christian talked about her experience, just hit by but someone had to print them, didn't they? So the info has to get out to a lot of people who are still unaware. So good, I'm very happy about this afternoon. We rallied out from the valley of the shadow of death. We rose, and I very much appreciate your attendance here. Now everything changes, of course. We gear up for the conference. The ceremonial group is making the whole room beautiful, and of course we made a decision. Oh, I better not forget. 2 things on my mind. Remind me about the decision. But Tuya and her group need volunteers to help with the beautification next door. So I would suggest that if you feel the urge to volunteer, you walk through that door and say, "Here I am," and then you'll be told how you can be used. You see, is that they are meeting at 5? Okay, well then that's great. So if you feel that you want a nice creative fourth-grade touch in helping to beautify and ceremonialize that space, then please do go through. Now, the decision last night was made. Notice there's no temple in this room. The decision was made to preserve that beautiful sacred space over there in the Palo Alto. Is it Palo Alto? Palo Verde. Palo Verde room. So that the incredible Davic presence that they've managed to invoke and the temple there can be left for meditation room for the group. And this means, of course, when you feel like you need to be refreshed and spiritually connecting, you just go there. And what we will be needing is guardians of the temple space. And that's one of the ways that people will be serving. Because there's so much valuable stuff over there. We just can't leave the door open, right? So we will need people assigned at different times to just be the guardian so that it can be completely open for all conference personnel to go over there when you need to recharge. And it's just such a beautiful atmosphere in which to do it. Somehow they've made an etheric temple, you know. It's just pipe and ribbons. I mean, you know, it's just fabric. But it's not just fabric. They've done such a job of it. So now we have what many people have asked, a dedicated meditation space for the conference. And I think that is very, uplifting. Okay. All right. Then we will, I think, we will simply have the great invocation, and we will go out into the heat. It is a little hotter today. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you for joining SRI USR Alumni Day, and when the year 2025 comes, may we all be able to look back and say we have been alumni during the intervening years. Very active, service-oriented, useful, powerful, productive alumni. Thank you. Thank you. And goodbye, webinarians. We'll see you. Whoa, well, unless we have the occasional intermittent webinar, we will see you at, what time is it start? 6:30?
7 o'clock tomorrow night?
Is it 7 or 6:30? 7?
7.
So then it will be 2 o'clock in the morning, Greenwich Mean Time. You can translate that into your own time zone. That will be the 4th of May, 5th of May, 2 o'clock in the morning, London Mean Time, Greenwich Mean Time. And if we have some occasional webinars, be careful, Shelton. If we have some occasional in-between presentations, well, it's just like roulette, you know, just dial up and see what happens, all right? Thank you for being with us, and now we have another 5 days of presentation starting, well, tomorrow evening. Okay, so if you're on Facebook, what do you say, Sharon? Ageless Wisdom page on the Facebook here. What will it tell? Okay, you can continue following what we're doing because we're posting it on the Facebook Ageless Wisdom page. Thanks, everybody, for being with us, and join us again. Conference continues.